On the menu for this video is a smoked chicken. We're going to be brining it, seasoning it, and tomorrow we're going to be smoking it up out on the Weber kettle. So what we're working with today is this 5-pound chicken. Now, before we get to the chicken, you might be wondering, hey, where have you been? It's been 3 weeks since you put out a video. Well, if you follow me on Facebook especially, I gave a little bit of an explanation. I'll give a short version here, and if you want to read more, you can read it in the video description. About 3 weeks ago, I was having some scheduled surgery, some outpatient surgery, a very common surgery, and there were complications. After a few nights in the hospital, I was out, and after a few nights out of the hospital, I was back in for another few nights for a second procedure to fix something that was wrong with the first. So yeah, it's been a fun few weeks, but I am ready to get back at the grill. So first thing I want to do is I want to break this chicken down into halves because that kind of makes it easier to cook on the kettle and to brine. So first thing I want to do is get the backbone out of here. I have my poultry shears, and we're just going to follow it along. If you make chicken stock, save this bone, this spine. It is great for making stock. Clean up any little bits in here. Now I could just do the whole CPR smash and get this spatchcocked before I break it down the middle, but the sternum right here, if you just take a nice sharp knife, you can actually score this and make it a lot easier to split. Sometimes you don't even need to use the poultry shears, but if you do, no problem. Again, clean up any bits that are stuck in there that you don't want. Let me tell you, when I was in the hospital, I was dreaming of food like this. But for several days, I was basically having just water, clear liquids. It wasn't fun. All right, that's looking good. Don't have a whole lot of excess skin or anything there. Let's go ahead and get this in our brine. I have one of my containers here that I love to brine in. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some water. Then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of brown sugar and 3 tablespoons of kosher salt. Nothing else. This is a very simple brine. This is to help the chicken retain moisture and flavor as you get it out there on the smoker, because we all know it. Sometimes chicken can dry out, and I've found that wet brining like this really can help hold in that moisture. Give it a stir. Gonna get our chicken halves in here, breast side down. And we're going to pour enough water to cover them. All right, I'm going to get the lid on this. It's going to go in the refrigerator overnight, and then tomorrow, I'll see you back here when we get this out of here. We're going to dry it off, season it up so it's ready for the smoker, and we're also going to make a glaze to go on it when our bird is getting close to being done. All right, our chicken has been brining overnight, and in a few minutes, we're going to get it out here and get it seasoned up so we can head out to the grill pretty soon. But first, I want to get our glaze ready for later today, because this is going to be going on the chicken when it hits about 110 degrees internal out on the grill. Now, we're starting with half a cup of honey. To this, I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of soy sauce, a couple teaspoons of pureed ginger, and about half a teaspoon of chili oil. I'm using this Chinese chili oil, really flavorful. And I've just got everything in this deli container here because it's much easier to mix in here and then put it in the refrigerator and just sort of let it mellow out. Get all those flavors mixed. This smells great already. That looks terrific. All right, I'm gonna get a lid on this, pop it in the refrigerator, and we're gonna move on to our chicken. So here are our chicken halves. Got them out of the brine, just patted them dry a little bit. And now I want to get a rub on them, and then they're going to go in the refrigerator for an hour just to let that skin dry out a little bit. It helps prevent sort of the rubbery skin. And if I was doing a dry brine, it would have just had seasoning on it overnight in the refrigerator. But really that wet brine helps keep the meat juicy and moist, especially the breast meat, the white meat. So this is a little bit of both. We're doing the wet brine and a short dry brine. And the rub I'm going to be using today is KC style rub from Q42 Barbecue. Let's just flip these over and get the underside first. Might seem strange, we're using a Kansas City style rub with some almost like a Chinese glaze, but let me tell you, it works well together. And you notice I have the chicken halves on a rack on my tray here just to keep them up off of any juices that sweat out while it sits in the refrigerator. All right, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna pop this in the refrigerator. It's gonna just sort of air dry for about an hour, and then we're gonna head out to the grill. All right, the Weber kettle is coming up to temp. My target today is 250 degrees on the kettle, and I'm using the Mallory Firewall and the Mallory cast iron grate. So let's go ahead and get our chicken on. I'm gonna put the leg quarters towards the heat source here. Get a temp probe in here. Gonna get a piece of white oak on here for some smoke. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get the lid on, let this get smoking. At about 110 degrees, I think I mentioned that, we're gonna glaze this. Ultimate internal temperature I want is 160 degrees because if I pull it off at that, it's gonna rise to 165 for that finished safe temp for poultry. We'll come back and check this in about 45 minutes if we're not at that 110 internal to glaze it. So I'll see you back here in a little bit. All right, we've been going 45 minutes. We're not quite to 110. We're at about 101 internal, but let's go ahead and check our chicken, see how it's looking. Hey, that's looking good. Good color developing. It's looking good, but by looking at it and seeing the dryness of the skin right now, I'm actually gonna wait until about 130 to glaze it. I want to give that skin a little more time to dry out before we put the glaze on. So we'll get the lid on and I'll bring you back when we're at 130 internal. All right, we are coming up on 130 internal on this chicken. The temp of the kettle's been holding really steady right around 250. So let's go ahead and give these chicken halves a glaze. I'm gonna do a little bit of a drizzle on here first before I brush. Going to do sort of a gentle brush here. Maybe just a little bit more here. All right, we're going to get the lid on and let these finish to 160 internal. All right, we're about to hit 160 degrees internal. Let's take a look at our chicken and get it off of here. I got nothing to complain about that. That looks gorgeous. All right, I'm gonna get this off here. It's gonna go inside and rest for about 10 minutes before we cut in and have a taste. Now, normally dark meat thighs are what I really crave, but this is really about getting that white meat, that breast meat, nice and tender and juicy. Let's cut in. Oh yeah, let's cut some of this breast meat. And that skin is not rubbery. It's cutting through nicely. Let's get a little bit of our thigh meat here. Get a little bit of a juicelange from it, which is pretty normal for that dark meat, the extra fat in there. And I'm ready to taste. Cheers. It's just a wonder what that brine will do, the wet brine. Now, if you don't have overnight, if you can manage, say, 4 hours on a half chicken like this, that's gonna help a lot. But that overnight brine really, really brings it home. There's great flavor from the brine, from the rub, and from that glaze, that little bit of heat from that Chinese chili oil. Really, really good. Let's see how the thighs are. A flavor explosion from the thigh meat. Just incredible. Everything coming together there. And man, with the breast too, this worked out exactly like I wanted it. Great to be back making food on camera.